friends who are on Zoom, can you hear us okay? Yes, welcome. Good. So good to see you all. Welcome to those who are present in person. Excuse me. Thanks for your patience. We'll begin our Shabbat morning prayers on page 141. Page 141 in the Siddur. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel, v'ani verov chastecha vovetecha, shtachave lecha al kodeshecha b'yiratecha, Adonai ahavti me'on betecha u'makom mishkan kevodecha, v'ani ashtachave v'echrav recha lifnei Adonai osi. ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני, את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך. Morning blessings, page 151. לשם ייחוד קודשה ברכוש חינתה, הנני מוכן ומזומן לקבל עליי מצוות עשה ואהבת לרעך כמוך ובזכות זה אפתח פי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים המעביר שינה מעיניי ותנומה מאפיי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים הנותן לשכל ובינה להבחין בין יום ובין לילה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים רוקה הארץ על המים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים פוקח עברים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים מלביש ערומים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים מתיר אסורים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים זוקף כפופים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים המכין מצעדי גבר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים שעשה לי כל צורכי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים עוזר ישראל בגבורה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים עוטר ישראל בתפארה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים שעשני בצלמו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים שעשני בת חורין. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים שעשני ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו כעולמים הנותן ליעף כוח. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר יצר את האדם בחוכמה. ברוך אתה אדוני רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. 165 אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא, תבערת אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי ואתה משמרה בקרבי. לחיי עולם כל זמן שהנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך אדוני אלוהי ואלוהי אבותיי ואמותיי, ריבון כל המעשים, אדון כל הנשמות. ברוך אתה אדוני אשר בידו נפש כל חי ורוח כל בשר. I ask you to turn with me now to page 175, to the verses of Psalm 30, which are an overture for our praise verses. And we'll turn to those two passages that are transliterated below the Hebrew text. They are the fifth and the third line from the bottom, and to pay special attention to that, the first of those two lines, and hear that word, et chanan, which we'll come back to later this morning. Elecha Adonai ekra, ve'el Adonai etchanan. Elecha Adonai ekra, ve'el Adonai etchanan. Shema Adonai v'choneni, Adonai heye ozer li. Shema Adonai v'choneni, Adonai heye ozer li. Elecha Adonai ekra, ve'el Adonai etchanan. Elecha Adonai ekra, ve'el Adonai etchanan. Last line. Le'man yizamercha kavod ve'lo yidom Adonai Elohai le'olam odeka. 177. Baruch she'amar ve'haya olam, Baruch hu, Baruch Oseh Bereshit, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Omer ve'oseh, Baruch hu, Baruch Gozer u'mekayem, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Merachem al haaretz, Baruch hu, Baruch Merachem al habriot, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Meshalem Sachar Tov Lireah, Baruch hu, Baruch Ma'avir Afela u'mevi ora, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Chailad ve'kayam lanetzach, Baruch hu, Baruch Podeh u'matzil, Baruch hu u'Baruch Shemo. 181. Baruch atah Adonai. Yachid ha'olamim, Melech meshubach u'mefar ad shemo hagadol. Baruch atah Adonai, Melech mehulal, Batishbachot. Turn with me, please, to page 201. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'Eloi ha'Elohim, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ha'Adonim, ki le'olam chasto. Le'oseh niflaot gedolot levado, ki le'olam chasto. Le'oseh hashamayim bitvuna, ki le'olam chasto. Le'roka ha'aretz al hamayim, ki le'olam chasto. Le'oseh orim gedolim, ki le'olam chasto. We know that everlasting godly love through the sun and the moon, ki le'olam chasto. Et ha-shemesh lememshelet bayom, ki le'olam chasto. Et ha-yareach ve'kochavim lememshalot balayla, ki le'olam chasto. שבשפלנו זכר לנו, כי לעולם חסדו ויפרקנו מצרינו, כי לעולם חסדו נותן לכם לכל בשר, כי לעולם חסדו הודו לשמיים, כי לעולם חסדו. Hallelujah, hallelujah. 231, last verses. Kol haneshama tehalleluya, hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehalleluya, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai mitzion, shochen Yerushalayim. Hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim, Elohei Yisrael, oseh niflaot levado. Ubaruch Shem kevodo leolam, v'yimale kevodo et kol haaretz. Amen ve'amen. Continue together, page 241, right in the center. Shochenad marom vekadosh shemo, vechatuv ranenu tzadikim b'Adonai, laisharim nava tehila. בפי ישרים תתרומם, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון החסידים תתקדש, ובקרב קדושים תתהלל, ובמכלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל ברינה. להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל, לקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך, לעד מלכנו. המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שירו שבחה, הלל וזמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח גדולה וגבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודאות אדוני נפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך חי העולמים. Ask you, Beth Sperber-Ritchie, to come forward. I want to turn together back to page 56 to share in a piece by Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan before we call ourselves together in the Baruch Hu. Page 56. Beth, will you be willing to offer this?
Public worship aids us by liberating personality from the confining walls of the individual ego. Imprisoned in self, we easily fall prey to morbid broodings. Interference with career, personal disappointment and disillusionment, hurts to vanity, the fear of death, all these tend so to dominate our attention that our minds move in a fixed and narrow system of ideas, which we detest, but from which we see no escape. With a whole wide world of boundless opportunities about us, we permit our minds, as it were, to pace up and down within the narrow cell of their ego prisons. But participation in public worship breaks through the prison of the ego and lets in the light and air of the world. Instead of living but one small and petty life, we now share the multitudinous life of our people. Against the wider horizons that now open to our ken, personal cares do not loom so large. Life becomes infinitely more meaningful and worthwhile when we become aware, through our participation in public worship, of a common life that transcends our individual selves.
Let's rise together in our bodies, in our spirits, in whatever way we're able, whether here together in person or zooming in from our own private sanctuaries. We'll turn to page 247 in our books and just invite us to take a moment to stand tall together in whatever way we're able to do. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Yotzer Or Uboreh Choshech Oseh Shalom Uboreh Et HaKol. 249 HaKol Yoducha והכל ישבחוך והכל יאמרין קדוש כאדוני, הכל ירוממוך סלה. המאיר לארץ ולעדרים עליה ברחמים, ובטובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד. מעשה וראשית. 251 המלך המרום לבדו מאז ומשובח ומפואר מתנשא ממות עולם. אין קרקך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומדומה לך. אין קרקך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גואלנו למות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לחיי עולמים. 253 or 255, either way. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו, המתגאה על חיות הקודש ונדר בכבוד, על המרכבה זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו, טובים מאוד עוד שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת, בבינה ובחזקאל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל, מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נאה זיוום בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם, בששים בבואם, עושים בהם הרצון קונם, פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו, לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, רע והתקין צורת הלבנה, שבח נותנים לו, כל צבא מרום כולה, שרפים ואופנים, שרפים ואופנים, וחיות הקודש עלי, לי, 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 Turn ahead to 269. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית, כאמור לעושה אורים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו במהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
Page 275. והבינו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת. להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. We continue with the latter paragraphs of the Shema and join together on 285. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית על כנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, זכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Page 291. Tilod lel elyon baruch hu vorach Moshe uMiriam uvnei Yisrael lecha anu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru kulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh norah tehilot Osef eleh Shira chadasha shibechu geolim L'shimcha al sfat hayam Yachad kulam hodu v'himlichu V'yameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed Tzur Yisrael Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael Ufdechenu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael Go aleinu Adonai tzivot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Sarah Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Rivka Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imot U'Mevi Gula Livnei Bneihem Leman Shmo Yahava Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai Rav le'Hoshia Morid hatal Mechalkel Chaim bechesed Mechaye kol chai berachamim rabim Somech noflim verofech olim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato lishenei afar Michamocha bal gevurot umido melech melech memit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata lahachayot kol chai Baruch atah Adonai mechaye kol chai. Page 303. Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam Kashem shemakdishim oto b'shmei maron Kakatuv al yad nevi'echa V'kazel zeh ve'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai tzivot Melocho ha'aretz kevodo Az b'kol rash gadol Adir v'chazak mashmim kol Mitnasim le'umat serafim Le'umatam Baruch yomeru Baruch kevod Adonai mimekomo במקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כמחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לנצח נצחים, בעינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue with the words of the Amidah, or the musings of our heart, and we'll join together in a peace blessing. Yikara v'yikara shmei rabba, v'yamad yivrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yimachon, v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'yamru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach, le'alam olam ve'amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran v'yama v'yimru amen. Titkabal tzalot tahonu v'oton d'chol beit Yisrael kodam avuhon di v'shmaya v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, bimru, amen.
Shar kochech, Beth. We are such beneficiaries of your talent and your generosity of spirit for some time and today again. We're going to turn to the Torah service now, and I'd like to come into it with some different verses to chant than are in our Siddur. There are verses that are part of today's Torah reading that if I could dream up the Siddur all over by myself, I would make into the Torah service in place of what's there. It's not for me to argue with, I don't know, 1,500 years of Jewish liturgical evolution, or maybe it is my job to argue with it. I don't know. Why not, right? Anyway, but I ask you to turn in your Chumash to Deuteronomy chapter 5. And that in the newer Chumash, that's on page 1194. And in the older, it should be on page 1354. So either way, find your way to Deuteronomy chapter 5. Again, in the newer Plout, 1194. In the older Plout, what did I just say? 1354. And just join me in just a quick moment of Torah study so that we can open the Torah service, and then we'll have a little more Torah study. In this week's parasha, we have the recitation of the Ten Commandments. The second recitation, we're familiar that the first one is in the book of Exodus. And it's here in chapter 5 that Moses, he's continuing his charge to the people, but here it's just before he's about to remind them of what the Ten Commandments sound like. And the verses that I always reach for as I'm getting ready to open the Torah, in my mind at least, are these. Chapter 5, verse 1, and chapter 5, verse 3. So let's walk through these with me. I realize we don't have them transliterated here, but the Hebrew, we can find our way together. Chapter 5, verse 1, Vayikra Moshe el kol Yisrael. Moses, in our English, it says here, summoned. He called out to all of the people, Vayomer alehem. And then I would like to chant with you, and I'll ask you to just respond after me. Shema Yisrael. Et hachukim ve'et hamishpatim, et hachukim ve'et hamishpatim, asher anochi, dover be'oznechem hayom, dover be'oznechem hayom. And so he's saying here, listen, all of Israel, to the laws and statutes that I am speaking into your ears today. It can't get any more personal and intimate than that. I'm speaking right to your ears today. And then jump ahead with me to chapter 2, verse 3. We say, Lo et avotenu Lo et avot, and I'm going to add, lo et imotenu, lo et imotenu, karat Adonai et habrit hazot. Karat Adonai et habrit hazot. Ki itanu, אנחנו, אלה פה היום, אלה פה היום, אלה פה היום, אלה פה היום, כולנו חיים, כולנו חיים. And so in verse 3, as if he could hear the children of Israel saying, well, those laws were given to a generation ago at least. He says, no, not only for your ancestors, your fathers and mothers, I'm adding, Karat Adonai, did God make this covenant, Habrit Hazot, Ki Itanu, Anachnu, but with us, we who are here today, Ele Pohayom, Kulanu Chaim, we who are living. We are the ones who need to hear this version of the truth and to do our best to embody it in the ways that our tradition teaches, both here in the Torah and across 2,000 years of spiritual evolution. So I ask you to chant with me these as liturgy, as many parts of our Siddur come right out of the Tanakh, so we feel very legitimate in taking these verses and allowing them to ring in our ears as we bring the Torah out for ourselves today. Please rise. Join me, chapter 5, verse 1, beginning with the word Shema. Shema Yisrael, et hachukim v'et hamishpatim, asher anochi dover be'oznechem hayom. Now verse 3. Lo et avotenu, lo et imotenu, karat Adonai et habrit hazot. Ki itanu anachnu, ele po hayom, ele po hayom, kulanu chayim. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, udevar Adonai miYerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael, bikdushato. Siddur, page 393. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu Adonai iti umero mema shemo yachdav lecha Adonai haleluya haleluya le'iferet ve'anetzach le'od li'od bashamayim Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu Adonai Eloheinu. We can be seated. Few thoughts about Parashat Et Va'etchanan. So to begin, join with me in the Siddur, page 1, I believe it's page 175. Yes, page 175, which we chanted earlier in our prayers this morning. Elecha Adonai ekra ve'el Adonai etchanan. Elecha Adonai ekra ve'el Adonai etchanan. Shema Adonai v'choneni Adonai heye ozer li. Shema Adonai v'choneni Adonai heye ozer li. We come into this part of Parashat Va'etchanan, the Sefer Devarim, and right here in this week's Parasha, there are two passages that became centrally important to our tradition. The Shema, not the one we just chanted, but the Shema, and the Ten Commandments, both from this week's reading. In the Shema, we have the essential Jewish declaration of faith, which is force through which all of creation is connected. And the following passage, Ve'ahavta, which attempts to put that declaration into practice. How do we implement this faith? By loving God with our whole heart, our whole being, our whole selves, by affirming this faith when we lie down and when we rise, by teaching this faith to our children, by marking it on the doorposts of our homes, which are the gateways of our comings and goings, so that we are reminded of this faith even in the daily activities of life. And what we've said before, in an earlier generation of Jewish history, the Shema was recited with the Ten Commandments as liturgy. It was part of the Siddur, as if to suggest that these passages might constitute the basic laws of life that we should remember. And of course, later the liturgy was altered so that the middle section of the Shema in the Siddur would be broader, more universal, not limited to just these 10, lest people think that it's just about these 10 and don't worry about anything else. And I have to add, especially because of the special aliyah that we're going to have in just a few moments, it's impossible not to see how strong the message of connection with our physical planet and care for our physical planet is emphasized in the middle of the Shema. It's right there for us to see every day of the week, twice a day if you want. All of this is to say, this week we get our ancestors' version of a mission statement for the Jewish people. There's enough here for, I don't know, dozens, maybe hundreds of Divrei Torah. But this week I'm interested in what precedes all of this in the narrative. So I felt I couldn't stand here and try to say something about Parashat Va'etchanan without saying, yes, the 10 Commandments are here and the Shema is pretty amazing. But I want to ask us to look at what leads into them, what comes up before the recitation of those centrally important passages. Is a question that our teachers and sages have asked over many generations, like, why is this positioned here before this? Why is this next to this? Why is all of this central mission statement here presented in the midst of Moses's soliloquy? So this parasha is called Va'etchanan, which in my head, I translate as, and I asked for grace, or I asked for graciousness. It has the word chen in it, which is grace. I don't think it means grace in the way that I understand Christian tradition to think of grace is a different kind of grace, but a sense of loving relationship, a sense of responsiveness between two parties. So in this case, Moses is the one doing the asking. He's relating all of this to the children of Israel. He's saying, this is what happened. I went to God and I asked for graciousness. I asked for loving kindness. And if we read through the text, we see that he's making one last attempt at an appeal to his own death sentence. He's saying to the children of Israel, here's what happened. I went to God one last time and I asked, could you show me some graciousness and allow me to go forward with the people? And as we know, the answer is no. In fact, God is really kind of irritated and says, like, don't ask, no. In this portrait of their interaction, we see a dynamic that many of us come to know in our own lives, and that is the painful reality of our own life's limitations. At some point, we're all asked to reckon with the reality that we won't reach the dream for which we've been reaching. We won't necessarily fulfill that goal that we thought we were reaching for. Life says to us, this is as far as you're going to go. I was reading through this and reminded of an image that's been rolling around in my head for maybe the last few years especially. And it goes like this. I'm standing there painting a painting. I'm not a painter, but in my image, I'm standing there painting a painting. I've got a paintbrush in hand. I'm very serenely adding and changing and noodling. And suddenly a big hand comes down and takes the canvas and says, thank you, that will be all. And I'm standing there with my paintbrush and I'm thinking, but I wasn't done yet. I still had so much more I wanted to do. There's no anger in the hand, it's just reality. This is as far as your painting is going to go, at least this painting that you were working on. I'd love to think that there might be others that I could still paint. But this one that I thought I had infinite time to work on and infinite space to develop it towards the painting that's in my mind's eye. And what's so striking for me in reading this week's Torah text is Moses' response to that reckoning. Now, I think many of us, if we had to deal with that level of harsh limitation, we might walk away in resignation or indignation. We might say, you know what, forget it. If that's how it has to be, I'm out. But he doesn't. He seems to understand on a deeper level that his ego needs are not part of this mission. So in the text, he turns around to the people and says, Lo et avotenu karat Adonai et habrit hazot. With even greater urgency, he says to them, you must hear this teaching, because I am not going to be able to be there to make sure you get it, but I am still devoted to the mission. He urges them to absorb the laws they've been given. He surrenders his own dream, as the text says, Lema'anchem, he says, for your sake. There's a commentary that came from, it's called Drashot Haran, medieval commentator, who notes that there's a move that happens earlier in the book of Deuteronomy. You hear the word biglalchem. Moses speaks to the people and says, I'm doing this biglalchem. I'm doing this kind of on account of you or because of you. And there's a little anger there. But by the time we get to this week's parasha, you hear the word lema'anchem. And the comment is that lema'anchem perhaps is more about the people's merit than biglalchem. That when Moses is able to say, I'm doing this for your sake, he's saying, I'm doing this because I finally get that there's a bigger story that needs to happen here, and I'm just a servant in it. I want to hold on to that possibility, that it's not only for Moses to begin to accept the reality of his mission, but maybe the message to all of us and comes down and takes the canvas away, that we might turn with greater sense of service towards may not be the calling we imagined we needed or wanted. It may in fact really not be that one, but that in fulfilling our godly potential, when we can open ourselves to serving what's in front of us, we may in fact be on the receiving end of that graciousness that Moses is so much seeking, and that I think we all seek, which we give voice to in our prayers. We say, as we just chanted together, Elecha Adonai ekra, I call out to you, God, ve'el Adonai et chanan. I ask for that loving kindness to be shown towards me. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be every wish I have will be granted, or even that my version of my own potential will be fulfilled, but that I be on the receiving end of some graciousness as I find my way to serve the larger mission that's in front of me. There's so much more to explore here, and I won't attempt to go into the full exploration, but I did want to end by trying to connect this with what I understand about the classical, the perhaps foundational definition of God in our movement, or one of the versions that we're given that comes from Kaplan, that God is the power that makes for salvation. God is the power that allows us to complete or reach for our potential, which is not the same as fulfilling all of our heart's wishes. It's about allowing us to fulfill our service, allowing us to reach that moment of et ratzon, when what we have to offer and what the world needs come into harmony. May it be so for all of us as we struggle to let go of the dreams that are not going to be ours and the vision that's in front of us. I see that we have our wonderful Ken Avner here. Ken, are you coming forward to serve as Gabbai? Wonderful. Bear with me just a second as I open the right. So,
Great.
yes.
ויעזור ויגן וישל לכל החסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל גודל, הבו גודל אלוהינו תנו כבוד לתורה. Yamdu. Everyone, all the congregants who have signed up for the Green America credit card or other alternative cards serving the same purpose. לעלייה ראשונה, ברוך שנתן תורה לעם ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם הדבקים עליכם חיים כולכם היום. Okay, the first reading, we're starting off strong. We're starting with the Ten Commandments, which Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 1. If you have the older version of the Chumash, it'll be on page 1354. If you have the newer version, it'll be page 1194. And it is customary to stand while the reading of the Ten Commandments is read. So we need somebody to come forward. Okay. Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kivanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai notei haTorah.
Amen. Can somebody hold this side for him, please?
Amen. ויקרא משה אל כל ישראל, ויאמר עליהם, שמע ישראל את החוקים ואת המשפטים אשר אנוכי דובר באוזניכם היום, ולמדתם אותם ושמרתם לעשותם. אדוני אלוהינו קראתי עמנו ברית בחורף, לא את אבותינו קראת אדוני את הברית הזאת, כי איתנו אנחנו אליך היום כולנו חיים פנים בפנים. דיבר אדוני עמכם בהר מתוך האש, אנוכי עומד בין אדוני ובניכם בעת ההיא, להגיד לכם את דבר אדוני, כי יראתם מפני האש, ולא עליתם בהר לאמור. אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך אשר הוצאתיך ארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. לא יהיה לך אלוהים אחרים על פניי, לא תעשה לך פסל כל תמונה אשר בשמיים ממעל, ואשר בארץ מתחת, ואשר במים מתחת לארץ. לא תשתחווה להם ולא תעבדם, כי אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך אלקנה, פוקד עוון אבות הבנים, ועל 34 לשונאי, ועושה חסד לאלפים, לאוהבי ולשומרי מצוותי. לא תישא את שם אדוני אלוהיך לשווא, כי לא ינקה אדוני את אשר יישא את שמו לשווא. שמור את יום השבת לקדשו, כאשר ציווך אדוני אלוהיך. 6 ימים תעבוד, ועשית כל מלאכתך, ביום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך. לא תעשה כל מלאכה, אתה ובנך וביתך, ועבדיך ואמתך, ושורך וחמורך, וכל בהמתך, וגרך אשר בשעריך, למען ינוח עבדך ואמתך כמוך, וזכרתי כי וזכרת כי עבד היית בארץ מצרים, ויוציאך אדוני אלוהיך משם ביד חזקה וזרוע נטויה, על כן ציווך אדוני אלוהיך לעשות את יום השבת, כבד את אביך ואת אמך, כאשר ציווך אדוני אלוהיך, למען יאריכון ימיך, ולמען ייטב לך על האדמה אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך. לא תרצח ולא תנאף ולא תגנוב ולא תענה בדרך עת שווא, ולא תחמוד אשת רעך, ולא תתאווה בית רעך, שדהו ועבדו ואמתו, שורו וחמרו, וכל אשר לרעך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
It was my mask. Oh, here. Yes, I know. So Yasher Koach, first of all, to Kevin, who are you? Kevin Teichman. Beautiful reading. And just mostly for the sake of the people who are on Zoom, I want to actually name the folks that are up here, and then Jim, turn to you, if that's okay. So these are all people who have chosen to participate in a most concrete and also symbolic way in the larger mission of the climate action team at Adat Shalom. And I'm delighted to be up here with so many, and I hope to join with you. Mirala Goldsmith, Lisa Max, Stu Simon, Carol Light, Ron Edelstein. Here, I'm going to come over here because the Zoom people cannot hear better. Where did I run? Jerry Ehrenstein, Rabbi George, Driesen, Mimi Blasiak, Marcia Teichman, Kevin Teichman, and Mark Wolf. And I'll turn now to Jim Blasiak, who's here as one of the leaders of this group, to share more about what the initiative is.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. Last Shabbat, the doors to the sanctuary were open and a butterfly joined us. And that appearance,
Close to the mic.
okay,
Yeah, that's good. Just get closer. Yeah.
and that appearance brought me back to my childhood. And then butterflies were abundant. We chased them around the yard and netted them. We jarred their caterpillars and fed them and waited for them to emerge as adult butterflies. Today in my backyard, I have a special garden just to increase the odds of running into a butterfly. I would never think of netting one today. Even the most common ones are too rare. To increase the likelihood that our kids and grandkids will also have the opportunity to see these extraordinary creatures in future years, a group of congregants represented by those here this morning has taken a symbolic action to tell some of the big banks that we know that they have been contributing to climate change by financing fossil fuel development. We have challenged these big banks by cutting up their cards or by using them less often. We instead have signed up for credit cards issued by a community bank or credit union. Many of us use a card endorsed by the organization Green America. The issuers of these alternative cards reinvest their earnings to support local communities rather than fossil fuels. We know this action alone will not solve the climate crisis, and we understand that climate change is not the only cause of the insect apocalypse. But we trust that our action has made everyone in the community more aware of how our financial decisions affect climate and the environment. For today, we have done our small part. As our sages said, you are not obligated to complete the task, but neither are you free to desist from it. So you are invited to join with the climate action team to save a butterfly. Save one butterfly and save the world.
Amen.
So join me, please, Yasher Koach, to all of these folks who are up here. And people on Zoom, you can send a chat or a wave if you want. And not only thank you for your leadership, but also for creating the space for us to all get there with you and with the great task of saving this planet for the future, for ourselves and for the future. Let me ask you, Jim, if you'll stay up as one representative of the group. Can I take this?
Yamod, Jeffrey Reuben, Yehuda ben Reuven, David veSerila, the Aliyah Hashenit. The second Aliyah will be Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 19. We're picking up, it's on page 1199 if you have the newer version of the Plout, and 1358 if you have the older version.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamborah.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kervanu La'avodato V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Amen. את הדברים האלה דיבר אדוני את כל כולכם בהר מתוך האש הענן והרעפל קול גדול ולא יסף וכבתם על שני לוחות אבנים ויתנם עיני ויהי כשמעכם את הכל מתוך החושך והר בוער באש ותקרבון עיני כל ראשי שבטיכם וזקניכם ותאמרו הן הרנו אדוני אלוהינו את כבודו ואת קודמו ואת קולו שמענו בתוך האש היום. אז זה ראינו כי ידבר אדוני את הדם והחי ואתה נעמה נמות כי תוכננו האש הגדולה הזאת אם מסעפים אנחנו לשמוע את קול אדוני אלוהינו עוד ומתנו. ומתנו כי מכל בשר אשר שמע קול אלוהים חיים מדבר מתוך האש כמונו וחי ויחי קרב אתה ושמע את כל אשר יאמר אדוני אלוהינו ואת תדבר עלינו ואת כל אשר ידבר אדוני אלוהינו אליך ושמענו ועשינו.
Big reading.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. It's a blessing, Jeff, to have you here on the Bima today to recite the Gomel prayer, and you'll share with us, and also about the, yes. Okay, so let's first turn to page 401 in the Siddur, and listen in for Jeff's blessing, and then answer him with the line below.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hagomel lecha yadim avim tovot shegmalani kol tov.
Amen. Mi shegmalcha tov, hu yigmalcha kol tov, Selah.
I'm here this morning reciting this prayer because about 2 months ago I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and about 6 weeks ago I had surgery to hopefully remove it. The procedure went well. My recovery has gone as well as one could hope for. I feel virtually back to normal, and I'm truly grateful to have gotten to this moment. There are no guarantees in this world, but I'm hopeful about the future in this moment. So I wanted to share that with you folks. Certainly a very profound sense of gratitude. In addition, and sort of as an added bonus in this moment, I also want to share with you, some of you know that for a number of years I have been enjoying the hobby of photography, and in more recent years I've begun to write poetry inspired by my favorite pictures. I'll add that my subject matter in particular has to do with nature. Time spent outdoors hiking or bird watching with my wife, and or just walking through the neighborhood. And during the period of the COVID pandemic, the desire for that, the appreciation of it has only grown. And at some point along the way, I decided it was time to put together these photos and poems into a collection and have them published, which fortunately has happened. And as an added sense, and Rachel, when I was listening to your Devorah today, it struck me that I feel especially rewarded with God's grace in this project. Not only was the canvas not pulled away, it actually got completed, but the paperback proof for this was sitting on my porch the evening I was discharged from the hospital and came home. So this is called Visions and Photos and Poems. This is the proof copy of the hardcover version. So I look forward to sharing this with you in the time to come.
Here, here. What a beautiful offering. I'd like to say a Misha Berach for you, Jeff. And just tell me, is this Cecilia?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what
We'll see.
Celia, okay. For your well-being, for your good health and your ongoing creativity, and to have that creativity manifest in such gifts to share with the world. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב ואמותינו שרה רבקה רחל ולאה הוא יברך את יהודה בן ראובן דוד וסיליה שעלה לכבוד המקום לכבוד התורה ולכבוד השבת. For you, deaf Reuben, who have come forward before the community in honor of this place, in honor of all the learnings of the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yechayehu v'Yishmerehu mikol tzara v'tzukah. May the Holy One of Blessing fill you with life and protect you from every harm and sickness, every trouble and every affliction. Mikol nega u'machala, v'yishlach beracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yadav. May there be blessing and success in all the works of your hands, your heart, your mind, your body. ויברכהו עם כל ישראליך ואחיותיו, ונאמר אמן. לבריאות.
And now for a complete healing for Jeff and for all of us who are holding someone in our hearts that's in need of healing, whether that's physical or spiritual or emotional healing. For the folks on Zoom, if you want to, as we've been doing, put the name or names of people in the chat. I see you've already started to do that. And if people here would like to stand, if you have someone in mind that you're holding in your heart, and just, and we're just going to go around the room and say them out loud. Matt.
My mother. David Shalom.
A blessing of healing, a refuah shlema.
So we need someone to take this aliyah. And while I'm at it, we also are going to need someone to lift the Torah.
I take the aliyah.
Ken, you'll take the aliyah?
Sure.
Wonderful.
I'm going to read it too. So.
Okay. And Stuart, you'll lift the Torah? Okay, but first the aliyah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Ya'amod
Hanan Yitzchak,
Hanan Yitzchak ben
Tzvi u'Metuka.
Tzvi u'Metuka le'aliyah hashlishit. So it should be.
While we're winding ahead a little bit to find where we're actually reading.
Yeah, that is right. Here, right there.
Okay. Let me say that I'm reading this today. My dad's yahrzeit is this week, so this is for him. When you were talking earlier about things that you don't get to complete,
Mhm.
my mind immediately went, as it often does, to parents and children.
Yes.
We do the best we can, and then they go off. Noam is going off to Havaya tomorrow. Liana is going off to college soon, and you do the best you can, and you put the rest in God's hands.
Yes. So thank you. We're turning now to Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 9 through 11. It's in the older version of the Chumash, page 13, Deuteronomy chapter 7, beginning with verse 9.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
V'yadata ki Adonai Elohecha hu Elohim ha'el ha'ne'aman shomer ha'brit v'chesed l'havav l'shomrei mitzvotav le'elef dor u'mshalem l'son'o el panav l'havido lo yacher לשנאון אל פניו ישלם לו ושמרת את המצווה ואת החוקים ואת המשפטים אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לעשותם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yasher koach, Ya'amod, Hamagbiya. We need a partner to address the Torah. Audrey, wonderful. Everyone, please rise. Come over the edge first. Come over the edge first. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael Adonai b'yad Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe, Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe, Torah, Torah. Torah tziva lanu Moshe, Morasha kehilat Yaakov, Morasha kehilat Yaakov, Morasha kehilat Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Yasher koach, Stu. We're coming to the last part of our service, but I am going to ask us to stay together a little bit longer. This Shabbat is the first of the 7 Shabbat, we say, of Nechemta, the 7 weeks of comfort, which we can expand to say the 7 weeks of encouragement, the 7 weeks of inspiration, of optimism, of renewed faith. And so we'll begin this Shabbat weekly reading of the Haftarot, which are all cued to that spiritual process that will take us to Rosh Hashanah from Tisha B'Av. We have people who will come forward each week. Actually, next Shabbat will be Benji Whiting-Eisman, who was just recently a bar mitzvah. And so I've asked for people not only to chant words from these beautiful passages, but also to share a vort, a little bit of a thought. The frame that I have appreciated so much, that I've shared with you all before, and I've shared with several people individually for these 7 haftarot, is that they portray a conversation between a traumatized people and a godly voice that is trying to coax the people out of its place of utter devastation and discouragement. And so there's a recognition that you can't start the conversation with, everything's great, with someone who's been through what these people have been through. So it starts gently with these words in chapter 40 of Isaiah, Nachamu, Nachamu, be comforted. Let me meet you where you are and acknowledge what you've been through and take you gently forward, reassure you that there is a future for you. This morning, I'd like to chant verses 1 through 8, and then I'm going to skip ahead to verse 21 and go to the end. And just notice here in verse 22, the mention once again of grasshoppers, which we heard about in the book of Numbers, when the spies come back from their scouting and they say, the people in this promised land are giants. We appeared to them as grasshoppers. It was a prescription of a doomed mission. But here, it's just a gentle, humble relationship. We are so small compared with the author of creation, and we can take comfort in that smallness. Our problems are not as big as we think, and we have a life force that continues to animate us even through the ups and downs of our experience. Please feel free to join me for any of this chanting. I'll begin with the opening bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'neviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah How long have we been muted, friends on Zoom? Vicki Bremen is making her usual kind and gracious but realistic response of the whole time, the whole chant, the whole haftarah. Ah, okay.
One more time.
Right. Matt Wald is over here saying one more time. Okay, I am so sorry. I'm not quite sure how that happened. Probably my mistake. So I apologize profusely. I recommend Isaiah chapter 40. It's a total beauty. And we'll have more Isaiah coming up next Shabbat. I'm not even looking at the right camera. So. Here I am, Va'et Chanan, asking for grace. So thank you for your graciousness. So you're saying the rest of the service you could hear? Yes? Okay, good. At least. All right, let's rise together to return the Sefer Torah, page 441. ובנוחו יאמר שוב אדוני רבבות ערכי ישראל כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם תורתי אל תעזובו את חיילי Let's ask us to remain standing together. Yasher Koach, once again, Stu Simon, page 445. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים. על כן נקווה לך אדוני אלוהינו לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך, להפנות אליך כל אישי הארץ, יכירו וידעו כל יושבי תבל. כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולמי עד, תמלוך בכבוד, כך כתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד. We are sending our most heartfelt condolences to Jen Sherman and to the extended Frank and Sherman family as they are just beginning the long journey of mourning and remembering Jen and her brother's mother, Beverly Frank. We are also with Shelley Ruddick and the extended Ruddick and Taft families as they continue to remember their beloved Richard, and also Jonathan Cedarbaum, who is in that first month of remembering his brother, Dan Cedarbaum. I want to also acknowledge the following yard sites that are being observed this week. Joan Bacharach's nephew, David Bacharach, Murray Sachs's mother, Barbara Fleider, Todd Levitt's father, Richard Levitt, Rick Moser's mother, Sylvia Troutman, Alton Gabai's mother, Renee Gabai, Martha Hare's father, Charles Hare, Judith Zauderer's father, Henry Polster, Lee Goldberg's grandfather, Jack Robbins, Jamie Banks' grandfather, Hyman Knopp, Gil Rosen's mother, Rachel Rosen, Ken Avner's father, Hirsch Avner, Mark Gunther's father, Edgar Gunther, Susan Diamond's husband, Samuel Hazlett, Polly Panitz's father, Stanley Panitz, Cheryl Rothenberg's father, Herbert Rothenberg, Reed Schneider's mother, Doris Schneider, Sherry Malikin's mother, Susan Seaman, Myrna Goldenberg's mother, Faye Solomon Gallant, Jody Lipson's sister, Sherry Bidwell, Rabbi Sid's grandfather, Charles Brand, Jesse Abraham's grandfather, Irving Steinhorn, and Deborah Basilis's stepfather, Norman Landy. And inviting others who are observing the Yort site this week to, if you're on Zoom, to please share them in the chat. The Kaddish Yatom is on page 451. And inviting all those who are in mourning or observing a Yort site to please stand. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'bizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba mevorach le'alam u'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal Shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ve'alma ve'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. Zichronam livracha. All these memories for enrichment, for comfort and blessing. I want to ask Carol Levine, I think I know, yes, our board member, to come forward to share greetings and maybe some announcements.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for beautiful service this morning. Although it's the middle of the summer and the dead of the summer, there is a lot going on in our community and in our synagogue. Last evening, we had the pleasure of enjoying Kabbalat Shabbat here on site with Rabbi Cantor Rachel, with Beth Sperber-Ritchie, with, I'll tell you in a minute, Cheryl Horowitz and Jeff. And it was just lovely, and the weather cooperated. So you did something right in the scheduling. Beginning tomorrow is contemplative chanting sessions, and this is on Zoom, and these are Sunday mornings beginning at 10 for the next several weeks. And then, believe it or not, Rosh Hashanah is around the corner, begins on September 6th, and we invite Elul Enlightenment short writings, poems, art to be submitted, and we invite especially middle high school students to please share your thoughts with us. All of these are in social solidarity. Please look for it each week. I'm only giving you kind of the tip of the iceberg of what's around. And we look forward to maybe seeing you, if you're so disposed, in person at one of the Shabbat services. So thank you very much. Did I forget? I forgot. Please. Okay, a small oneg for the folks who are here with some sweets.
Second, on Monday evening, there's going to be a Zoom meeting of the climate action team where we're laying out our next campaign, which is why you become your clear, get to ask questions to one of the leaders of the Montgomery for All Coalition, who's also one of the public leaders of the Drive 2050 plan. Why do you think it's an essential part of the county meeting its climate goals, and why we think we need to go with climate justice for the county?
Thank you, Stuart. And just to make sure that I repeat, the Climate Action Committee, there is a Zoom meeting on Monday night, and lots of important information and guests. So thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Carol. Just to piggyback on what Stu was just announcing about the next meeting of the Climate Action Team, Monday evening on Zoom. Sounds like a very important conversation about next steps in terms of policy, not just for our community, but in the much broader, the real policy world. I wanted to also highlight another subgroup of our Social Action Committee that's working on refugee rights. Will be, several of our leaders will be involved in a gathering at the Capitol on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. There's a multi-faith effort to speak for refugee rights and to call on our government to respond with the values that we believe should be animating our policies. For those that are on Zoom, we, for the moment, have resumed masking indoors together as a community. We're watching the pandemic as carefully as we can and want to err on the side of safety. So we'll just stay in touch and appreciate everyone's cooperation, and please stay safe yourselves. And as I said last night, don't be shy about wearing a mask when it's time. Is there anything I'm forgetting? Yes. So with enormous thanks to Shelley Sadowski and also Matt Wald, who did so much to keep our connections flowing today. The muting thing was on my end. That has nothing to do with them. So many thanks. And because of some additional technical issues we're having, we won't have breakouts on Zoom today. So Shabbat Shalom. Can I, I wanted to just, I'm going to zoom around the room here, so just give a wave. Here's who's here. Trying to do this slowly so that people can see. I got it. Okay, there we go. What? Both ways? Or the queen wave? Okay, I'm going quickly around this way because these are people you've already seen. There's Shelley Sadowski, and here's the Bima again. I want to just say, it's the wave, the Landsman Sachs family says. Really grateful for everyone's good humor. I know mine was starting to thin out this morning myself, but I feel that it's been restored from being with all of you. Please join me to say Kiddush. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו, צברי חבריי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ בתיאבון. בתיאבון everyone, Shabbat Shalom, לבריאות. Yeah, I see.
So I said yes.
So, but what?
Couldn't they unmute?
But I can give somebody else the hosting. So let's see.
Well, actually, they don't need to host. They just need to be able to unmute.
Well, right, but if I press end.
You don't-
Yeah, there's no reason you all can't stay and visit. So I have Shulamit and David are saying I can give them the host. If I do this, yes, good. Okay, Shulamit and David, I'm going to assign you. Assign and leave. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, can people unmute or yet? Let's see, participants, no.
Yes, yeah, unmuted.
You can unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Excellent. So you guys can unmute yourselves.
We're a small but wonderful group at this point.
Hi, Malka.
Hi. Oh, how many are we now? Let me look.
9.
We're 9, but that includes the sanctuary. So
Perfect. Okay.
what kind of, I haven't caught up with you in so long. What kind of art are you working on these days? Still working in denim or other kind of stuff now?
Okay. Yeah. I'm doing denim. And right now, this minute, I'm in 2 shows. One in Monmouth University, which goes through
New Jersey.
In New Jersey. It goes through August, so next month too. And it's a couple blocks from the boardwalk and the beach. And I was so pleased to be in that show because they only asked for 3 entries, and all 3 of mine got in. So I was so happy. And then they had, which you can see in Monmouth University, you can see the video that they took for the virtual opening, and every artist gets to speak, every artist.
That's
So
cool.
I get to speak to, I'm around 32 minutes, I think. But yesterday also, I'm in Annapolis, and I've got 2 pieces there, but in Annapolis, I was pleased to be a recipient of honorable mention award. So they had only the award people speak. So there were 7 of us for that show. So I was so pleased.
That is awesome.
So then I got to speak there, and they're at 24 minutes or something like that. If you want to see that, just that. But the whole thing, of course, each one takes an hour. So this is the first time I got to speak about my art for a period of time in public lately, for sure, and on Zoom for sure. So I was real happy. And and in September, you're invited, September 9th, I'm going to be in a show at the Strathmore Mansion, which is really hard to get into.
Where is that?
It's block away from my house. It's on Rockville Pike and Strathmore.
Near the Metro.
Near the Strathmore,
Metro.
It's near Grosvenor Metro.
Oh, cool.
You know,
Yeah.
we're in Virginia, so
Oh, I'm really
It's on
so
the red, it's on the red line somewhere.
nothing to be sorry. We love Virginia.
Yeah.
happy. So I'm real happy, and I'd like to know, and we're doing a lot of gardening, so Shulamit and David, tell us about yours stuff.
Well, we're doing a lot of gardening too. We're going to be,
He's doing a lot of gardening.
I'm doing a lot of gardening. I've got a bunch of stuff to harvest today. Can't eat as much as we're harvesting. I miss actually being able to go to either to synagogue or to work where I can bring all my extra produce in. So we're just, we're canning, we're freezing, we're doing all kinds of things. Our youngest son moved in June from Seattle to San Francisco. So I flew out to Seattle because he's never driven a U-Haul 1,000 miles. So that was Dad's job. And so we stopped in Crater Lake, which was just gorgeous. And we stopped at Mount Shasta. And the weather was perfect before the heat waves came and the fires came. And it was a really nice trip. I haven't spent real time with my, extended period of time with my son for a number of months since he moved out to Seattle in last October. So that was really nice. Just we're also, Shulamit and I took over, we're honored to be able to take on the role of co-chairs along with Naomi Edelson of the Green Cocoon Committee. And so that's one of the things that's been starting to keep us busy. We just kind of assumed that responsibility in July. One of the things that we're going to do is host a hug at our place on September 19th.
Right after Yom Kippur,
Right after
before Sukkot.
And the idea is to create lulav from native and local plants, rather than all the greenhouse gas and the environmental impacts of having those shipped across the world or across the country. And so we have a bunch of plants around our property that are appropriate for a native lulav.
And
so,
I have ordered citron smelling
oil.
scent oil, so we can put it on some lemons so we can get American fruit.
Cool.
Because the Torah does not say it must be a citron. It says the fruit of a beautiful tree. And so, yeah. But I know that the reason people don't want the lemons instead of citrons is because they love that smell. So I bought the smell.
Wow, that's wonderful. We actually are growing a potted plant of Myers lemon.
Right.
And they're this little though, so I don't know if they'll be ready by then. If it's yellow, I'll bring it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Well, along the creek where we live, there's also a few groves of pawpaw, which is a native fruit that smells good and is edible. So I'm not sure if they'll be ripe at the end of, they usually ripen like the last week of September, first week of October. So the timing might be decent. So we might have a couple of those to demonstrate a real kind of native fruit to the mid-Atlantic area. It'd be fun.
Well, this has been lovely. And does anybody else who's on want to talk?
I don't think anybody else is on.
Well, no, and
Huh?
there's other
They haven't
screens.
gotten off it yet.
Everyone's muted though.
Well, not everyone, but I thought I'd give them an option before I said we're gonna go. But we're gonna go because I think.
Shabbat Shalom, Malka. Shabbat Shalom, Bruce.
Oh, wait, I just want to say, we have a lot of cucumbers. So yesterday I looked up a recipe and it was ready in 3 hours. Pickling them without boiling anything. Oh my God, it was so delicious. We brought them, we actually went to last night to the Kabbalat Shabbat and we brought them for ourselves for a lot,
What kind of a recipe is it? What is it?
I can send it to you.
That would be awesome. I'd love to get another recipe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long they're supposed to last since it's not boiled or anything, but it was really good right away. It was delicious.
Right.
And I was
for him. I became allergic to cucumbers.
Oh.
Right? Not fair.
Are you growing dill? I actually had my own dill.
Yes, growing dill.
We've got dill, got oregano, have all kinds of spices.
We have onions, we have garlic, we're growing.
Yeah,
the garlic is drying in the treehouse. I actually think it's ready to process now. Yeah, so all kinds of stuff.
Wonderful. It's really good talking with you guys.
You too. Talk to you later.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.